Hey everybody, it is Taylor of Summer Del Sol here. Today I'm going to be working on installing my dashpod. So this will be the first time I cut into the fiberglass on this kit. I'm a little nervous. Wish me luck. So of course step one is to tape it up. I'm going to tape a little bit further than what I know the cuts will be distance-wise, but honestly, just go ahead and tape it up everywhere. Or at least find a way to protect the outside of the shell. Now you might be asking me why I'm taping the inside, but this will come in handy later. Making some cuts within here made the process a lot easier later on in the stages, and it'll help minimize edge fraying. Ah, the template. There's a reason I didn't show you how I did mine, because it turns out I'm an idiot. Well, I guess that's not news, but to make your life easier than mine, go ahead and just unplug the gauge pod, lay it face down, and draw a template outside of it. My way, of course, made my life more difficult, but again, not news there. Once I felt comfortable with the shape that I'd cut out, I put a piece of tape on the template to hold it in place and traced the outside line I was planning to cut. I kind of eyeballed mine, but I got it into position where I was pretty happy with it. After making some final adjustments, I got it in a spot that I was happy with and drew the line around it. With everything set, I was nervously ready to make the pilot hole. The trick here, as you'll notice, is I'm running the drill in reverse in order to not catch any of the fiber. It takes a while, but it's worth it to not rip anything up. Right now I'm not working with a hole saw, but going forward I will probably invest in one for the hood. I think you're about to see why.
Man, that is tough.
But I eventually got through. So with the pilot hole drilled, my genius self thought, hey, surely I can do this with a handsaw. Let me just go ahead and spoil this. I couldn't. And moving locations did not help. Yeah. Defeat is the only word I have here. Whew. Alright, so I'm over this. But I just found a very old Dremel that I hope still works. Fingers crossed. Alright, here goes. Yes! I have a power tool! Excellent. But I need a blade. And safety glasses. I will actually wear safety glasses now. That is freaking awesome. Oh, that's gonna be so much easier. Oh! Hooray! After a quick power trip, I very dangerously put this tool to work. Yes, I'm aware of how stupid this is. Yes, I know I could have flung this into the tire, into the car, into myself. Do not do what I was doing here, and definitely make sure you're wearing real safety glasses. After a few Kerbal Space programs with the blades, I figured it was time to upgrade my ensemble, ominous as it was. With my full suit of armor, I went back to work. I definitely still try to keep that parallel to myself, so if something did fly off again, it wouldn't hit me. Huh. That was weird. Do you know what I was doing? Oh, yeah. Back to drilling. Duh. That is so weird. Does anybody else feel like they're losing time? Huh. I don't know, but I'm making good progress here. Okay. I'm not afraid of you anymore. Please don't be broken. Okay. Hey. Get off! With the celebration dance and catharsis toss out of the way, here is the final result. Woo! I did a test fit to see how it lined up with all the gauges, and I'm pretty pleased. It's not perfect, but with a little edge trim, I think it'll look quite nice. Now here's definitely where it comes in handy to have a teeny tiny head and also teeny tiny hands. Working in this area is very difficult, even for me. Here I'm working on trying to figure out where I'm going to line up the holes that I actually mount this to the cluster. A quick note here, go ahead and start with just the bottom holes and then see if the two holes line up for you a little bit later. That'll save you a little bit of visual pain. You'll see why. Once again, I made sure my drill was spinning backwards so I didn't grab any of the fiberglass, and drilled out those two bottom holes. As you can see, I did drill out the top holes. I might mount with those later, but I needed longer hardware, and I'll get to that point a little bit later. I decided to take the tape off here, but I'd recommend leaving it on. And of course, consult your instructions. At this point, I am going a little bit off the rails here, but this sheet will have the accurate way for orientation of your bolts. Now, I really should have done this forever ago, but if you haven't disconnected your gauge pod, just do it now. It made life so much simpler. Okay, so here's my logic. I'm starting to think I need to trap this plastic clip in between like two nuts here so this sticks out. I definitely need to do this second after getting these tabs way up here done. I hope you can see that. You can see the hole in this little divot area connecting to this tab up here where my finger is probably blocking. And I think I can use just a pressure mount for that. I know I should probably catch that like two nut system the same way as this one, but I don't think I can get my fingers in there for double, so that's the next move. So with the plan laid out, I got to trimming the edges to try and get this a little more space. I also tried my hand at filing this down and quickly realized this was actually a pretty fruitless effort. So after a little research, the consensus seems to be online that the top two bolts here from the kit are just not quite long enough, at least if you're not going to have this kind of flush with the edge. I definitely see some points where I'm getting interference, and I really don't want to recut this. I think I've got a solid shape for now. It's not gorgeous, but some edge trim will help, and I'm just going to mount to the bottom two tabs. Seems to work for others for now. You know, I definitely advise trying to get this longer hardware if you can't quite get that to pivot forward inside this hood. But for now, I'm just going to mount on the bottom and pray. Okay, so with the revised plans laid out, I got to work on mounting the bottom tabs only. As I mentioned earlier, it definitely still helps to have some small hands and another set to hold on the lock nut while you twirl this in place. Don't forget the washer in between, or else you have to take it back off and then put it back on. Ah! All right, frustration is at a high, but it is attached and ready to be mounted to the car. Least favorite part. And here I'm pointing out exactly where I will be mounting that gauge pod. I'm using the tabs on the far sides, and finally saying goodbye to Harley. She'll be paying homage to the donor car and living under the dashpod permanently. But I also quickly realized I need to take off this plastic cover as well. With the cover removed, I was ready to say goodbye one more time and actually install this. It's a bit tricky to get lined up, but if you can peek your head underneath, it definitely makes it a lot easier. I apologize for the angle, but there was just no way to get the camera underneath here. Basically what I'm doing is using the remainder of that bolt that attaches the gauge pod to the cluster and running that through the bracket that's connected to the Exocet. So with that overhang, I'm then adding the lock nut to the back end so they all three sit together. With the two kind of loosely secured at the base, now is a good time to plug in the components just because I have a little bit more wiggle room to work with here. It was really helpful to have that be flexible still, as it's a pretty tight space. And for the final hurrah, I basically used the hex key and some pliers to twist and hold that nut in place. You can't see it here since I was only on the last few turns, but I basically held the lock nut with the pliers and kind of spun the hex key around so that would bring that nut forward on the back end. And voila! It has a few scratches and 3 extra holes, but what can you do? Hopefully my struggles here will help somebody out in the future. I would say this was one of the more challenging things to do on the kit for sure, but I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out and excited that it's one less thing on the list. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and following along. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will catch you next time.